We should get advertisers. That would help. Find
We're gonna have a quick break and we're gonna run a couple ads. No, I'm just kidding.
But this segment brought to you by Q. He is not favorable with your dice. If you would like to be favorable with your dice, please send a self-addressed stamped envelope to.
No, I will say, if anybody listening out there wants to advertise on the show, it means we could afford to move to, like, you know, Blog Talk or something. That would be cool, right?
Yeah, but then I can't get all my wonderful additional, you know, image things to help people understand stuff. But all right, so moving on to part 2. What is going to be our theme for this part 2 of our episode here now? Sean, did you have anything prepared specific or no?
Not particularly. I think we were going to talk about like the resistance.
We were just going to talk about some like the scenarios in general or themes in general, you know, and builds to exemplify them. But we kind of jumped a little bit of that into part 1.
The restrictions, the suggested restrictions.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so we'll go back to Tucker. What he was saying about RIF2.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, the nice thing about RIF2 is that it's one that really encourages a specific style of building. And let me also say, I hate the new restrictions. I really, really do. But they are, I will say this, they are requiring me to be a lot more creative in my building.
Are they? I thought you were just going to run...
Yeah, I had the opposite effect where it was like, I want to go build a creative build, and I think I probably will be, but I'm also tempted to just bring, you know, the double sphere nonsense, like Picard thought.
Well, no, that's. I mean, I'm gonna be running double sphere, double tac drone, Borg missile all day, every day. But what I actually mean by that is, well, not quite. I'll be running a variant on that. That effectively is exactly the same thing. But my point is, if I'm not doing that, if for some reason I'm making tier 2 lists, you know, Borg or Band at the shop, or I don't know, we're playing Delta, whatever Will is calling his format, or we're playing with the limited list that Dave and I like, or you know, any of that stuff.
Or someone's running one of the other dozen different kind of restrictions to try to make the Borg not broken.
Yeah, or, you know, even if you're doing something like Air Appear, you know. Though I will point out, thanks to Enterprise, Borg are Air Appear, but whatever.
They didn't have a sphere in there, or a cube.
They had that weird drone shuttle thing.
Yeah, I really actually want them to make that. Oh, I just want a cheap Borg ship besides the Scout. I mean, if we're going to be limited to, you know,
something on the light side that's kind of like the Soong, where it flies like a normal ship, but it's, you know, cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, imagine a Raven, but with like maybe a Borg slot and the Scout Cube restriction, something like that.
With like 2 or 3 dice instead of like 1.
Well, yeah, it's Borg. It has to have more attack dice.
Yeah.
But like no shields. Did it have shields?
I don't remember.
Anyways.
That was a while ago.
I didn't actually watch Enterprise.
It has held up well. It's not quite as good as DS9 or Voyager. At this point, it's held up pretty well. And if you're a really big fan of Star Trek, you'll probably like the 4th season.
But yes, for different restrictions, for the different OPs, I mean, there's definitely a lot of different things to go on. You know, you want to kind of schedule your theme around what you're actually going to be facing in a match. Because, like, you're not going to take... What's a very silly,
I will say
ridiculous thing.
The thing about RIF2 is that because, like, at least in my one of my venues, at least, they're going to be doing the restrictions. It actually changes. Like, I have no idea what the meta is going to be like. Like, I'm expecting spheres, but I have no idea. Like, I don't know if anybody's going to bother bringing disruption because it's down to 50-point builds. You know, like. So that has changed things. So that definitely is a curveball for at least the first event.
Because not only
then the question becomes, because nobody expects disruption, nobody's going to bring, cost dispersion field. Should I now bring Riemann boarding party or whatever?
Exactly.
Oh yeah, I mean, all the different restrictions. You gotta try to figure out, what these rules are going to be. What is it going to mean? Because there's things like, if you're going to play Mutara Nebula scenario or something, you're not going to see a lot of Romulan Bird of Praise there, because the cloaking is basically ineffective and useless. Or you're not going to see, what's another good one?
You're not going to see the Jem'Hadar battleship at the Tholian Web.
Yeah, that'd be a terrible one.
For those newer players out there, the Jem'Hadar battleship is like the least maneuverable ship in the game, and Tholian Web is a scenario where by the end of 7 rounds you're fighting in a space that's range 1 and you die if you fly outside it.
Yeah, it's 12 by 12, I believe, was the final size.
Yeah.
Like it gets down.
Well,
super tiny and something the Jem'Hadar couldn't live in.
Right. And then the question becomes, well, what about a Jem'Hadar battleship with skilled helmsmen? And the answer is, don't ever run that. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Part of me is
double
hoping
auxiliary
that
power tokens.
Their movement rulings, that we will be able to use Forest to make the Jem'Hadar battleship useful.
Aw, Tucker, you just ostracized one of our viewers. They actually took a battleship to the Tholian Web.
God bless. Well, you know what? Let me ask that viewer, if you don't mind sharing with us, how did you do?
Like, these things happen sometimes.
I feel like this turned into therapy hour. How did that make you feel?
Well, hold on. Let me grab my bottle of Canar over here. Oh, wait. I don't have that bottle. Darn it.
That was just maple syrup or something.
I really need a bottle of Canar that I can drink on here. It'd be water, of course.
One thing that really bothered me about the Canar on the show was that it very much was this sort of slow oozing liquid, right? But the guy who plays Damar just swigs it like it's water, and I'm like, you can't really be drinking very much at a time by doing that. Anyway, I'm sorry. That's just a pet peeve I have.
But it works. So yeah, I mean, if we want to go over scenarios, I had a build prepared if we want to go over that.
Sure.
All right. This is an old build from way, way back in the day. So, imagine, if you will, back in Wave 2, before the Borg were ever conceived of. Well, okay, maybe not conceived
long time ago.
When the world was ruled by cloaking Klingons and Romulan Valdors that were all over the place.
Man, when the Romulans were good, remember then?
So, going back over the themes we were just discussing in part 1. Offense, how do you kill the other guy? Well, if you're expecting the other guy to always be doing some kind of cloaking shenanigans, a good way back in that day was antimatter mines. I don't see them as much nowadays because we don't have as many problems with cloak, but they are still pretty darn strong if you do face off against that kind of thing. So, antimatter mines, if that's going to be our theme, the first thing you need is what? Ships with rear arcs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, the things I had available really were the USS Defiant and the IKS Chitang. Which is nice, though, because the Chitang helped on the offensive side of things. What you really need with the antimatter mines is way to manipulate the dice, and they're a little bit harder to manipulate than other things.
I mean, in this day and age, we have 1,000,001 ways to do it, but back in the days of yore...
If you wanted to play with just like Wave 1 beginner set stuff, you know, before we got concerned with all the what is broken and what not, Wayun Veril, whatever cheese that you're going to accuse me of.
It all started with Shroud and Conditional Surrender.
But we've got here, I have a list. The list is USS Defiant. Jean-Luc Picard serves double duty offense and defense. Incha is my defensive card of choice, and I'll go over that afterwards. Antimatter Mines, that's the offensive theme. Mr. Spock, he adds to the offense with the because he works with cloaked mines and helps adjust them. And quantum torpedoes, which is more of a backup plan, and I had extra points just to be safe. His cohort in crime, the Chitang, was flown by Jen Khan. So between Picard and Khan, I had the highest skills on the board, and almost certainly going last. Another copy of Insha for defensive purposes, the antimatter mines because that's our theme, and Federation photon torpedoes on a Klingon warbird because I needed to spend an extra point. I suppose I could have thrown like Clag on there or something, but it's an old list. And back then, my resource of choice was the command tokens, battle stations, target lock, re-rolling and setting red dice or re-rolling green dice.
The days when those were like the best.
Man, command tokens. You know, I have enough command tokens that I'm seriously beginning to consider using them as action tokens just so that I don't get them confused with my opponents. They
have the nice shiny gold back and the gold surround.
Yeah. And it's not like I'm using them for anything else. Come on, let's be serious.
I at least might actually end up using them at some point because one of our venues is experimenting with doing like 10 points of resources mixed. So you can take a fighter squadron at 20 or you can do 10 points mixed. So you can take like elite attack die and the command bar, or you could take like fleet captain with it, or
Fleet plus command bar is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Valdor with Mirok and an app. Wait, what? David, what are you doing over there in the chat?
I was consoling our battleship in the Solian web guy.
But yeah, so I mean, this is a list that actually did have a very unified theme going into it. It was dealing damage to cloakers, getting around their defense dice, and it worked rather well. I have a whole video replay of it and everything. It's called OP4A or something over on the channel. This was what was run there, and the best defense was just to kill them first. So if anyone was silly enough to cloak in any vicinity of me, the extra action I could get from Jean-Luc Picard gave me killer antimatter mines with an Insha backing it up. So the biggest problem with the antimatter mines was they had to be shot out of your rear arc. With Insha, I could do a 3 come about, and all of a sudden I'm facing my rear in your general direction.
Will, you also had an entire video of how to hit people in front of you with antimatter mines.
Oh yes, there was that too.
I was gonna say it's not too hard to hit them when they're at any range 2 even.
But because of the fragility of my ships, I needed to stay. I was trying to stay as far out of range as possible before stepping on the Insha gas pedal, as it were.
Okay, I see where you're going.
Because both of these were cloaked and had only 3 hull.
Yep.
Man, remember the days?
And Vorches throw a lot of dice.
Remember the days when 3 hull ships were tournament viable?
When did that die? I think that died around the time the Excelsior came out.
The Excelsior and the Keldons.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Because at that point, then 3 hull, 2 shield ships were able to be one-shot with frightening regularity.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, so...
And then, shortly after that, we are the Borg. The Borg have 6 attack dice.
And shoot in any direction. But yeah.
Yeah.
So the list has its offense, kill things with the antimatter mines, 8 modified dice with Mr. Spock on one, and the Chitang's free reroll while cloaked on the other, was usually enough to kill most things that were going to hurt me a lot. And at that point, if I didn't, I probably had killed 2 out of maybe 3 ships. So if there was a 3rd ship left, that's what the quantum torpedoes and photon torpedoes were for, was to shoot out of my rear arc at them as I was running away.
Yeah.
So this is an example of a full strategy.
Antimatter mines lately, because I keep seeing builds that aren't running the multi-adaptive shields for some reason. So like the mines against like Dodge Voyager that forgets to bring the shields, or if you remove the shields.
Well, for those things, we have cloaked mines now. Cloaked mines were a vicious addition to everything. Because they were these, but better.
I mean, and let me give another example of building for a particular meta. My round 1 opponent in Tholian Web, way back in June, I remember his build very well because it was the first time I had played competitively against a Borg, and oh my god, was it annoying. He took a sphere, which is great in limited space environments, RIF OPs 1 and 3, and then also took an Apnex with cloaked mines, because that's what you do in a restricted space OP.
Yep. Do you have anything to go against that?
I will say that the easiest solution to dealing with cloaked mines in the Tholian Web was racing to the middle, because if you got there before they got there, they couldn't drop them.
Yeah, that's what I ended up doing on all subsequent games in which, spoiler alert, I played against cloaked mines.
How'd it work out for you?
Well, okay, so round 3 I didn't play against cloaked mines. I was flying Klingons, and I went 2-1. I lost to this guy, Emil, who is a really cool guy and whom I have never beaten. So I didn't feel too bad.
But did it help with the cloaked mines in the future?
What, flying fast? Yeah.
Learning experience.
In the future, I was playing Borg and proceeded to not care about cloaked mines ever.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was my list for Tholian Web, like, because they were doing it here pretty much the week after that wave came out, and it was just double generic spheres. You know, I think I had armor on one, and it's like, yeah, it was dumb. Did not care about cloaked mines.
That was the one that I brought back the reinforcement sideboard for, so I could fit Energy Dissipator. That was fun.
Yeah,
I did play against the Dissipator. I think that's what I ended up doing with my other points. Like, I remember stealing it off the ship. Like, I got hit with it once on one of my spheres, but it was so early that it, wasn't in danger of flying off the table at that point. And then it was just, he did kill one sphere, but then he couldn't, like, he got trapped in the flying in a circle with it just dancing around in the middle, killing his Keldon first, and then, it was bad.
Oh, yeah. So, back on our main topic, which is fleet building for dummies. What are we going to do to tie this next part into the fleet building for dummies? What do we still need to do? It's been a long time since I've had to teach people fleet building. Sean, you are our guest star. I'm going to put the onus of this on you.
Okay. Well, I mean, we've already discussed meta, more or less, about like trying to be prepared for your local environment, because everybody's venues are different. Some people run casual, some people run hyper competitive. I think it also greatly affects your local meta based on your prize ship access, because I know out here, like, most of us have everything. So like, if something is hard to get, is a powerful build, we'll run into it. We'll see it. Like, I think like at least half the people at our venue, our larger one anyways, have Cork, for example. So now we're all dealing with that. But I think it's just region. So whenever I see people trying to bring up that, oh, well, build A works at my venue and build B that you mentioned doesn't work there, and it's like everybody's region is different. Because even out here, like, I have two shops that I go to. I have one that is faction pure, well, ship pure, and has its own restrictions, and until recently had banned Borg. I think they unbanned them for the recent the resistance is futile, because it was silly to have the Borg event without Borg. But the other one is anything goes, but they have restrictions. They're starting to write a small rule book, basically, of restrictions, so it just keeps getting added to. Like, they've restricted Wayun and Varel. Like, you can't have both of them in the same fleet. They restricted, I think it was like Koss and DF from protecting each other, and kinds of weird things. So part of me is going to be glad when we get this rules forum upgraded so that there is somewhere official for TOs to go to look at things, so that rather than just guessing and going with what they feel is best.
Once
because
the
that
floodwaters
also
have
affects
been,
my builds. So
now that the floodgates have been opened, once they finally start getting it back in order again.
Yeah. Oh God, what have we done? Give us a week, you guys. Please stop asking questions for 1 week.
It's funny too. I remember I was in there and I was reading questions, and I realized that I had follow-up questions for most of their answers. And then I realized if I had those kind of questions, that surely at least a couple hundred other people were having a similar question and were also posting. And then I started realizing, man, they must have to go through like thousands of posts to figure out what to moderate and put in and what not to. And it's like I'm sure they're beginning to realize what a momentous problem that is. But hopefully they're redesigning their site now.
I think the thing about WizKids is I just don't think they've really grasped how popular this game is. Like,
I will say, like, did you talk? Like, you talked to the president when he was out here.
Yeah, I talked to Justin, and I mean,
he seemed surprised.
Well, that's the thing, is that almost every single thing that WizKids does is everything WizKids has ever done in regards to this game has been totally explainable if you assume that they don't. It's just like every time they check in on their fans to see how popular the game is, they're just totally, their projections are totally blown away.
I think a good example was their ship allocation for the DS9 packs up at Gen Con.
Yeah, I mean that's the example. But there's also stuff like, we have 8 regionals events for a game that came out last year, and people are complaining that there aren't enough of them.
Although that one's kind of weird because at the same time, not very many of those venues were full. Like, there was only a few of them that actually had a reasonable turnout.
Yeah, but I think that had more to do with
could be location. I know that, like, for California's, they had it in the convention that you had to pay to get in, like some nonsense like that.
That explains a lot. I didn't know that. That explains a lot.
And there were a lot of
because then you had to pay to get into the tournament as well, from what I understand.
There were also a lot of people that were like, man, I really want to go, but it's too far.
Yeah.
And then, I mean,
like, if they held it in Central Florida, I guarantee we could have gotten 20 people on here just from Florida.
I will say, like, the only reason I ended up going to one was because it was, like, here. I was actually surprised to see us in the list.
Well, that's the thing is, it's like if there are, I don't know if you could still do it. For a while in LA, you could go to an OP every single week if you wanted to. Some more than one in a week.
It's getting to that point here if we're willing to drive.
Right, but here's the thing. In LA, nobody uses the WizKids event system. Which I think is why LA didn't get a regional.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think...
I will say a lot of the shops out here weren't either until very recently.
Huh, that's weird. Because I sort of assumed they allocated them based on WizKids event things.
Oh, I'm sure
I know we have
I'm
2
sure
shops, including one of mine that I go to regularly, like the bigger one. Like, that one does. And so I imagine, like, if a couple of the bigger venues did, that's probably why we ended up having a regional event out here. That and our location, smack in pretty much the middle of the country. So,
yeah.
So, guys, fleet building.
Yes.
We only got a little off topic there. But
I guess another thing would be under these suggested rules is the effect they'll have on played resources.
Yeah.
Things like the reinforcement board, which people had never heard of before that have been playing this game for a few months now.
That been playing for long, but no, that thing is bonkers.
Yes. Yeah, well, I mean, that was it was like one of those things where, like, even I pulled that out for one of the regional out here, and it was like, man, I wonder why nobody uses this thing anymore. And it's like, oh yeah, flagship and fleet captain.
All right, we had a way to dump all of our points onto the board from the get-go.
Yeah. The nice thing about the sideboard and the restrictions now with the 50 points is when you include that in your build, not only are you getting 10 free points, but the 10 points you get for the survival of any of your ships kind of helps balance out the fact that your ships are worth, they're easier to kill. So, like, if they kill your bigger ship, your 50-point ship or whatever, and your 40-point ship survives, it's actually 50 points because I guess it would still be 40 because it's a 30-point ship, but it's got 40 points worth of stuff on it. So, it's like, I guess points wise, like I would definitely prefer to use the board over the flagship, especially because flagship counts against the ship, that particular ship's build limit, so you can actually show up with the ship without its slots all full and fill the slots up for the first turn or two, like just flying along the edge of the board. That's pretty huge.
Honestly, you don't even have to fly along the edge of the board. I mean, you're not going to engage in the first turn unless they're doing Picard maneuver or something, so.
Yeah.
Could be a new strategy.
The Picard maneuver, it's more they're going to engage and you're going to roll a die, maybe 2, and hope to hit.
Pretty much. It's you getting smashed on the first turn and then continuing on. I will say that as far back to the counters thing, I've actually heard a lot of people, they want to switch over to the Picard maneuver, like they want to go for like the Alpha Strike or a gank or something right on the first turn. Like Jennifer Sisko that came out in the new Defiant is actually a pretty good solution to that whole problem, and she brings a tech slot, just cause. But
here's my favorite rules question that we need the rules form back for. Okay, ready for this?
Okay.
We both have Jennifer Sisko.
Ascending order of captain skill.
We both have the same captain skill, are of the same faction, and are tied on fleet points.
Then it's whoever has initiative.
Dice. Yep. Yeah, I think it would just be a roll off at that point. At least that's what I would think.
They did it. Well, okay. I shouldn't say they did because it's not in the official whatever document. But for things like cloaked mines, where they happened at the beginning of the turn, if you had problems with resolving order, it went in ascending captain skill and then initiative.
Okay.
If you ever had something that was supposed to happen in the same kind of phase, and your both opponents wanted to do one depending on what the other guy did, which is kind of silly. But
yeah. And the question, the real question is, can I trigger my Gen Sisko to disable your Gen Sisko because fuck you, basically. Pardon my language, sorry.
And then be like, whoa, she can't do her ability ever now.
Yeah.
All right. So, beyond arcane rules questions, I'm going to give us a kind of short little blank space right here, and the chat. Fleet building challenge, anti-Borg without Borg. I will not touch this because I've already gone over my opinions of what Borg does and why it's overpowered from the get-go. We did an entire episode on it.